The Cold Hard Truth now has your Premier access with Premier Panton.
Hello everyone, this is Wayne Panton. Come and join me on Cayman Mar Road's Premier Access every other Wednesday at 7 p.m. for a frank and open Q&A session. I'm here to answer your questions about the issues that concern you the most. Tune in to YouTube and Facebook Live on Wednesday. We will see you there.
Full transparency, answering your questions, down to earth, accountable, and accessible to who matters. You. Don't miss Premier Access on The Cold Hard Truth, spilling the tea like no one else.
Okay, good evening, folks. Good evening. Welcome to another segment of Premier Access with Premier Panton. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I do want to remind you that you can call into the program, 939-2626. Our phone number is up and working. We got a couple more weeks, getting very, very close to this show also being live on radio. So super excited about that, folks. Lots going on behind the scenes to make that happen. And we appreciate you guys joining us for an evening segment. I know evenings are always super busy, and you guys could be doing so many other things with your time. Getting dinner sorted out for the kids, putting your feet up after a long, hard day at work. So many things going on. But thank you for deciding to tune in and join us here on Premier Access. We're just waiting on the Premier. As you guys can appreciate, he is super busy. We're going to do an hour tonight. I know we try to do it from 7 until 9, but you know what? Some days he is really, really busy. So we appreciate whatever time he's able to give us. So 1 hour tonight, get your questions ready. I see earlier today, we of course put up a notification that the Fed's increasing the Federal Reserve rate, and right away the banks in Cayman have already started issuing their notices that that increase is going to be coming. So someone just sent me a notice of that. CNB is raising it from 3.325% to 3.5% effective March 18th. So you got 2 days. So it happens extremely quickly. What can we say? They're trying to, manipulate the situation in terms of the markets and inflation and all this sort of stuff in order to offset the increase that a part of it is really due to what is happening in Ukraine, as well as other factors as well. And so we'll see. For those of us who have mortgages, or any kind of loan, that means it's going to be crawling up there. And none of us are happy about that, really, to be honest. So yikes. We need to get somebody in the program who can kind of explain that to us. So good evening to Wee Wee. Good evening, Diamond Princess. Good evening to Miss Bonnie. Irvelin's here. Good night, y'all. Thank you so much for joining. And Kevin has put up the evening weather. Let me just check and see if we can get his weather link. And I'll tell you guys what's in store for the weather as well. So now we've got weather coverage mornings and evenings. Isn't that fantastic? Thanks to Kevin Watler. Lots of headlines today. Headline news coming up later on with CMR Daily Buzz with Misha. She's going to be giving you all of your headlines for the day. And there's one system for tomorrow, Kevin says. Just a little invite to a party in my inbox. Nice. So here's something of interest. The Omicron surges overseas continuing, especially in China. We've been talking about that China is seeing some significant surges yet again. They're trying to lock down their country. It's just crazy. to the tune of millions of people in some, was it 18 plus cities in China? Really, really super crazy. I think their position, again, we've said it before and I'll say it again, this zero COVID policy just isn't working for them. And so the sooner they accept that and figure it out, probably the better. In terms of Cardinal Avenue, that's going to be in the news this evening. So that is closed completely to vehicular traffic, and they are starting work right away. The work crews were in there today, and we got some footage, which Misha will be sharing during the evening news segment. So we'll get an update on the weather with Kevin here in just a second. And a lot of you have been sharing an ad with me, which we'll talk about, I think, on Friday's show, because tomorrow we've got a full slate of guests come in. We're talking about MS, multiple sclerosis, and people who suffer from that. So let's just get a quick weather update from Kevin, and then I see that the Premier is ready to join us.
Good night, K-Man. I'm Kevin Watler, and this is your CMR weather update. It's brought to you by WG Charters. Clear skies overnight with light and variable winds. The temperatures will fall to the mid to upper 70s, and the waxing gibbous moon came up around 5:20 this afternoon. It's going to go away right around 5:40 in the morning. Sunrise will be at 6:30 tomorrow morning. Expect sunny skies with winds east 10 to 15 miles per hour. Now the day is going to heat up to the upper 80s, but again, it's going to feel like the 90s. The sun then goes down right around 6:35 in the evening. Here are the tide changes for tomorrow. Awesome boat and beach conditions straight into the weekend. The CMR weather update is brought to you by WG Charters, so please check them out if you would like to have a private sunset or boat charter. Have a wonderful night.
All right, Kevin, thank you. So that's your evening weather. Again, Kevin gives you your morning and evening weather so you can plan your day and plan into the next day as well. So isn't that wonderful? Let's go ahead, folks, and put a virtual clap together for none other than our Premier, Mr. Wayne Panton. Good evening, Premier. How are you?
I'm good. Good evening to you, and Sandra. Good evening to all of your guests, those who are tuning in from all over the world.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure as always to be here with you.
Thank you for joining us. So Ravina is
and I'm joining you standing again.
Sorry, you're standing?
And I'm joining you standing again.
Oh, perfect. I was wondering. Yes, and I'm standing as well. I had to get I don't know if you have this when you're standing, but I actually have a what do they call these mats? It's like a tension pressure mat or whatever. Mat? Yeah, it's important to when you're standing a lot to give yourself a little bit of extra cushioning. Yeah. So yes, it came with my my standing desk, believe it or not. Well, it was a little extra, but whatever. I've had it for years. I've used it in the kitchen, and I thought I'm standing more in the studio than the kitchen. So anyway, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. I saw big news today. Lots of parents are really excited. They sent me an update. They've been asking me what was going on, and they sent me an update for the free school meals. So your government is the first government to offer this, which I think is wonderful to parents. So all parents can now take advantage of this because now it's also in the higher grades, so like the high school level. So the public schools meal program, folks, started in September with primary schools and the Lighthouse schools. Secondary schools now are being added as of March the 21st. This program is being managed by the Ministry of Education. And if you have any queries, you can email schoolmeals@gov.ky. So let me tell you what you're getting. I mean, this is fantastic. I feel like I want to go back to school all of a sudden. You've got breakfast, a snack, lunch, and you get 2 drinks for the day. Hopefully you guys are encouraging your kids to just drink water and no sugary drinks, no sodas. But yeah, you get 2 drinks for the day, breakfast, snack, and a lunch. And you know, there's nothing quite like a kid who's not hungry, who can focus on their studies because they're getting options in terms of well-balanced cooked meals. So if you have not yet signed up for this, the deadline is March 20th. And I think that your schools are, they're sending out all the emails. So hopefully all parents have now received these emails. But if for some reason you haven't, simply email schoolmeals@gov.ky with any questions that you may have. Premier, this program, how has it been working as far as you've heard?
Well, as far as I'm aware, it's working well. Certainly, the um, the primary school students have been benefiting very much.
Hmm.
I haven't heard of any. Nobody has contacted me with any complaints, and the way things are, and
Hmm.
typically, if there's a problem, you're going to hear about it.
Yes.
So I think that this has been welcomed by parents in the school system. It's one of the things we recognized was we did have kids that were coming to school that were
Hmm.
not not being provided with funding. We or the parents weren't making provision for their lunches. Um, so it's really important for our kids to have good nutrition. But apart from that, it's really important that they don't be hungry attending classes and not being able to focus on their schoolwork.
Hmm.
So our approach is to make sure that no child is going hungry in our school systems. Um, and that is the policy of the education department has been that for some time, but they hadn't actually gotten to the point of backing that up, and that is what we've done. We've delivered on that, and I think it has helped a lot of parents. Not, they don't have to worry about finding the money for their to pay for the lunches to give it to the children to take to school, and that has
Hmm.
absolutely helped them on a personal family level, and it certainly benefited the children.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, like I said, I'm looking at the menu thinking, wow, this menu looks fantastic in terms of the options because I thought it was only one meal a day, but they pretty much got full coverage.
Yeah, no, it's snacks included as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So, this past week was Youth Parliament, and I got to watch some of the debate on yesterday morning with our young people. First of all, they did a fantastic job. I was impressed, and I thought some of them, when I read some of well, when I listened to some of their arguments, even those who were on the opposing side, who were against this was for the sexual harassment bill, I thought to myself, wow, that's a point that I hadn't really thought about. But in the real world, as a business, you think about the impact of legislation and different cost considerations and so on. And it looks like they really had it pretty well covered in terms of the debate. Did you have an opportunity to speak with some of the young participants in the youth parliament?
That is one of my regrets. I was supposed to go down and um, attend and provide remarks as usual to the youth parliament. Unfortunately, we had we had a call with the minister, um, Minister Millings, and
Mm-hmm.
that was with all of the OC's territories leaders, as
Mm.
well as Gibraltar, and this was to discuss the situation with the Russia sanctions. So
Mm-hmm.
we were actually quite busy dealing with that, and I had to have one of my colleagues read my remarks there for me. I did, however, get to listen to a little bit of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very impressed, as I have been in the past by many of the youth parliamentarians. I'm hoping that we will see one day someone who's actually gone through that program actually end up in Parliament as a legitimate person being um, voted in by the people of the country, by the people of their constituency to
Mm-hmm.
represent them, and they would then that would complete the circle. Though they will have done that program, they will have benefited from that, and the people who have the opportunity to vote them in will absolutely be benefiting from that experience that they have had. They'll be able to hit the ground running probably a lot quicker than most people who have never had the experience and who are elected to office. So I want to say to those parents that got their children involved in the program, it was absolutely a pleasure to listen to some of them. The I didn't get all of them, but I'm sure that they all performed wonderfully. I
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of my colleagues came back At the end of the day, we had some meetings in that afternoon that went into the evening, and I was listening to them sort of talking very excitedly about the various discussions that went on and how good these young people were, how amazing they were. So that's been my experience in the past with them.
Hmm.
And I'm not surprised at all that they didn't disappoint again. And I want to congratulate those participants, and acknowledge that the time that parents had to spend to allow them to, drop them off there and allow them to participate was absolutely well worth it. And I also want to thank my colleagues, and not just on the government bench, but those across Parliament, across both sides of the aisle, who participated in this and contributed their time to help these students be prepared for this. They've all done a wonderful job. The staff at Parliament have done a wonderful job, and it is really great to see this sort of engagement and contribution. So absolutely, it has to go on, and as I said, I'm waiting for the day that one of those persons who has been through that program actually gets elected.
Hmm. Yes, I'm sure it's going to happen. And ironically,
It's a matter of time.
I was looking at your cabinet post meeting summary, and I don't know if they got the idea from this for one of their topics or not, but this is from March the 8th, and this is some of the things that your cabinet members are looking at. And again, folks, I want to remind you that this is the first time, and to best of my knowledge anyway, in the history of the Cayman Islands, that post-meeting summaries are being provided under this administration. So we're moving steps closer to what we would consider real transparency. And it has just a summary of all of the things that are discussed at the cabinet level. So obviously there's might be some things that they can't go into full detail, but I wanted to share this with you guys since the premiere is here on the show. And what I found quite interesting is that one of the topics actually here at the top, let me just increase it so everybody can see it. So this again was from March the 8th in the Cabinet Conference Room, Government Administration Building. All ministers and members of cabinet were present, with the exception of the Honorable Bernie Bush, who I believe is actually off island. Parliamentary Secretary Isaac Rankin acted as temporary Minister for Home Affairs. Yes. So in his absence, Parliamentary Secretary Ms. Isaac Rankin took over. And look at the first thing: approve the issuance of drafting instructions to update the sexual harassment bill. Now, I didn't even know that we had a sexual harassment bill, believe it or not. I knew that some time ago there were some talks about it, but I think this is one of those bills that probably a lot of people don't know about. And quite interestingly enough, this was one of the topics up for discussion for the youth parliamentarians as well. Clearly, that's a bill that we need to probably have a look at and review. And I'm sure, folks, that there will be a public consultation period. Perhaps, yes, if they're drafting instructions to update it, maybe there'll be a public consultation period to find out a bit more about that.
Well,
but
just in relation to that, Sandra, this is one of those bills that one of those issues that's been around for a very long time. A lot of public consultation has occurred in relation to that. There was I think the genesis of it was somewhere around 2008, and it went through a series of public consultations. A draft bill was prepared. It didn't go anywhere. There wasn't any political commitment to it at the time, I think, other than having the draft prepared. And I think we ended up with a bill in 2015. There was a 2013 version, I think a 2015 version. It just didn't get, it wasn't taken forward at that time. At this point, I'm the Minister for Gender Affairs, and it was something that I felt very strongly about. We should be able to move this forward and get this done. I seem to have a history of picking up on issues that people have dealt with for some time and have decided not to move forward for one reason or another. And this is one that I think is really important for us to address. We have a lot of issues in our society that are relevant to in this area. And it was International Women's Month, and I thought it was very appropriate that
Mhm.
we get this bill updated. There will be once it's updated, it will come back to cabinet, and hopefully we'll be in a position to approve it for publication, and then subsequently table it, have it tabled and debated in Parliament.
Mhm.
I would like to see this piece of legislation come into effect, and protect women in this country. I mean, it is relevant across the board. I mean, it's issues of sexual harassment are not exclusive to women, but it's predominantly women who tend to suffer
Mhm.
most from this sort of unfortunate behavior.
Yep, that's for sure. I mean, we saw some recent examples here. We were talking about employment situations. It was just shocking how people still are not getting the message that you
Yeah,
can't, especially in the workplace. There's certain behaviors that, once you have that professional relationship, you're an HR manager, you're their boss, whatever, you can't say and do certain things. It's just not right. So
yes.
maybe we need to review that sexual harassment bill with a view to reminding people that apparently it's codified, that's probably against the law as well.
Well, I
Um,
mean, one of the things for certain is that as we move through this process and eventually publish the bill for consultation and hopefully pass it, um, we will be doing a lot of public engagement to make people completely aware of the provisions of the bill, the obligations under that, the the protections that it offers. And the reality is that, as you know, Sandra, a lot of these types of scenarios involve people who are not in the same positions of power.
mm,
And you may, for example, have a male um, who is very senior. He may be at the top of the ladder, at the top of the organization, and it's sometimes they make mistakes. Sometimes they set out to do this. It's a practice. But either way, we want people to be very clear on what these issues are and how they have to act to avoid running into problems. And we also want to make sure that organizations have the right policies in place so that if there's this sort of behavior, well, first of all, there's a lot of clarity around what what it means, how to avoid the scenarios
mhm.
that would give rise to difficulties under a law like that, an act like this, and make sure that the culture and the practices in your organization
Mm.
are such that it prevents people from actually engaging, whether they intend to do it or whether it's inadvertent. It either eliminates or prevents them from getting involved in that sort of activity. It's a
Mhm.
very unfortunate thing, and it is very. I've had the you know I've had the misfortune of having to deal with scenarios like that in my life over the years with other people, and trying to manage those and get them to understand what the problems were and how to avoid them. And I've seen the effect that it has had on um, on women, um, sometimes younger, sometimes older, and it is just truly heartrending to see those sorts of situations, and we want to avoid that altogether. So we need this piece of legislation in place to make sure that those people that to make sure people who are not trying to do it, but they they avoid inadvertently falling into that situation,
Mhm.
and to be able to punish those who are setting out to do it, who are harming
Yes.
other people through their actions and through their behavior. We need
Yep,
to hold them accountable.
for sure. Also, from the cabinet meeting, we see that there's been a purchase of some property here in Cayman Brac to provide additional parking that's adjoining the community center. So I'm sure that's much appreciated for them. Can you say anything about this purchase of this parcel for Georgetown?
Um, if my memory serves me correctly, that is a parcel that is in central Georgetown, sort of behind to the north of the government building.
Mm-hmm.
Um, somewhere in that general area. I don't remember. I don't remember specifically, but remember now these are transactions that are possibly not complete. So I don't want to
Say too much about it.
get in a situation where something is said which has a negative impact on the potential for completing those transactions.
Okay, not a problem. Tourism Attraction Board annual reports and audited financials. Looks like they're trying to get caught up. We've got 2018 and 2019 being tabled. Maritime Authority tabling some for December of 2020. Civil Aviation Authority also tabling their annual report and audited financial statements for the period ending December of 2020 as well. And some appointments to boards. So the Human Tissue Transplant Council, Keisha Sims has been added as a member.
Yeah, I just want to say something very quickly there. I mean, it's not earth-shattering, but I find it very appropriate for this individual to be appointed because they were very closely involved with the donation, with a donation, let's put it that way. I'm probably going to get myself in trouble here, but I was so impressed, and I felt it was so appropriate to have somebody who was directly involved, closely involved with a donation, which demonstrates immense caring and love for another individual to be able to be in that situation. So I'm not going to say anything more about that, but I just, as I said, I've just been so impressed by that individual and I thought it was very, very appropriate to have that individual represented on that board, who could bring the perspective of somebody who is, immensely generous and kind-hearted, and willing to be involved in that sort of thing. Helping another human being is just what we need to encourage in every sphere of activity in life that we have in Cayman.
Absolutely. And speaking of generosity, in case anyone missed it yesterday, was quite an amazing event at the public beach, the 7 Mile Beach there, because you had, someone who has generously donated a calisthenics park, all the equipment and the design and the layout for that, which I thought was amazing. And, got a fantastic opportunity yesterday for our young people to come out and see the facilities, government officials to come and do the official ribbon cutting and the grand opening of that. How did that feel to know that here's a private citizen who has stepped up to the plate, come forward, and essentially, volunteered to put this entire part together?
Yeah, no, I thought it was fantastic. The Mr. Schlossstein is an amazing individual. I said to him yesterday, well, let me back up a little. One of the things he said in his remarks was that he has a property in Germany which is being renovated, a hotel property, I think, which is being renovated, and he was talking about the some of his team being involved in providing living quarters in that hotel property for, I don't know, it's 100 and something plus Ukrainian refugees. And I just thought it demonstrated amazing humanity for someone to be on this side of the world, contributing this sort of this sort of facility to the people of the country, to the children of the country, to be able to utilize. And at the same time that he's doing that, and he's showing himself to be a caring individual and contributing to our community here, he's also thinking about um, the human beings that are being heavily impacted by this Russian act of aggression in invading a neighboring sovereign state, and the people who are suffering there. He's worried and figuring out ways to help those individuals. And I just thought it demonstrated an amazing aspect of his humanity, quite apart from his generosity in doing this facility here for us in Cayman. My colleague, Minister O'Connor Conley, made some interesting observations at the time as well, and that was, he came in the door when she first met him. He came in the door. He started talking about what he wanted to do, and he didn't come in that others as others sometimes do and say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, but I want you to give me a quid pro quo. And sometimes that quid pro quo is in a situation like this is just waive the duties for me on the materials and supplies. Um, that in itself is not not an unusual, and there's nothing wrong with that kind of request. But he didn't even come and ask for that. He didn't ask for a quid pro quo. His desire was to contribute a facility like that to the people of the country, to put it on or next to our 7 Mile public beach, West Bay Public Beach. And I just thought it was a fantastic, another fantastic indicator of the kind of person he is, and the quality of the work he wants to, and the quality of the facilities, and the impact on the quality of life of our people that he's interested in trying to achieve just by being generous.
Yeah.
So I know you were there. You got to see the facility as well. It was really amazing. It's got a little walking track around the outside of it. It's actually for those who could make use of having a little bit of a spring in their step and a little bit of softness in terms of the impact when you're walking or running. It has this built into the track, and it's just amazing. It's the young people there were really enamored with it, and even some of the older ones were just dying to get up there. When the governor went up there and he flexed his muscles and demonstrated the grip that he has. He's a bit of an athlete himself. So
Yes.
yeah, it was really fantastic. It was really fantastic. The kids, the young people, and the what do they call them now?
Street calisthenics. There's
Well,
such a thing. Yeah.
yeah, calisthenics, but they call it something else anyway. But
Street performers.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's just excellent. It's excellent. It's great, to be able to go to the beach, to be there with your kids, enjoy it, and it's just such a convenience for families. So, kudos to him. Kudos to Philip for doing this. It's an amazing contribution. It was all done completed within 3 months.
Yeah.
So,
I was surprised actually when I got the invite to say that it was opening. I'm like,
yeah.
weren't we just at the groundbreaking of this a couple months ago?
Well, I didn't.
No time was wasted.
I had been invited to the groundbreaking, and unfortunately, I had other matters that I had to deal with at the time. So I didn't get to be there for the groundbreaking and to see exactly what was involved with it. So I was very pleasantly impressed and surprised at the quality of this and exactly what was involved. So, like I said, fantastic job.
Absolutely.
This is the kind of individual. This is the kind of contribution that we welcome at any day in this country.
Yes. So Nikita makes mention of needing some updated parks in the Newlands area. Can you tell us a little bit about? I know you had a project recently in Newlands where you were doing some park works, as well as, to the best of my recollection, something with was it the launch dock as well in Newlands?
The launch ramp, yeah. So I have been working on gathering information and trying to get replacement playground equipment to put in the parks in Newlands. And what we were doing more recently was basically the launch ramp at Newlands is very heavily used, particularly on
Mhm.
weekends. And because it's at the end of Leeward Drive, people use that road a lot for walking with their, with their kids and with taking their pets for walks and stuff. And,
Mm.
they typically go down by the end of the road by the launching ramp. And I thought it would be fantastic to be able to improve the facility, put in a proper fish cleaning station at the launching ramp there, put in some additional lighting. We're gonna have some Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi there. We're waiting on the guys to finish the temporary electrical wiring and boxes there to facilitate all of that. And then we're going to do landscaping around that. We've got the tables there already. The tables were beautifully painted by volunteers, so they look very nice, and they have been used. And we've got stone benches as well. So we're going to put in some nice landscaping, some beautiful trees there to provide some additional shade. And that's just on the sort of the launching ramp side. On the other
Mhm.
side, at the back, which is basically on the south side of the parking lot, we are going to be putting in some playground equipment as well, so that if you were there, if you walk down there with your kids, or if you just go down there, you can enjoy the beautiful view over the North Sound. You can spend quality time with your family, and get some exercise in, and the kids can have fun. So
Mhm.
that is the approach. I want to take a similar approach in relation to other parks in Newlands. Um, they In the past, I think the DART organization had done a number of parks,
Mhm.
and put in some recreational equipment, uh, probably more than 10 years ago. And that equipment originally was made out of wood. So those, the parts and the components of that have effectively, in many cases, rotted away,
Mhm.
and they became quite dangerous. So I basically removed a lot of them that were falling down,
Mhm.
and the plan is to reinstall new equipment there, um, that the kids can enjoy safely, and parents can spend time, just socializing while the kids are playing and enjoy the park.
Mhm. Yeah, because it's one thing certainly to have equipment go in, and when it's great and when it's brand new and it's all nice and shiny. But
Yeah.
as you say, maintenance seems to be an ongoing concern. So with that particular park, as with all parks, it is the responsibility of there's a division called, is it Parks and Recreation?
To be honest, I think at times Parks and Recreation may have been involved in
Hmm.
maintaining them, but certainly in more recent years, nobody was doing it. There were a few people that were doing it on a sporadic basis. So I sort of took over the responsibility of maintaining the parks, keeping them properly trimmed and cleaned. And as I said, I'm looking to put in where we have basketball courts. Many of the basketball hoops have, uh, come into disrepair. So
Hmm.
I want to get new hoops, put those up, you know, good quality things that will actually stand some wear
Hmm.
and tear. And some of the bigger kids can feel like they're NBA stars when they're playing and dunking
Hmm.
and taking shots. So, we want to make it very functional. Try to lower the maintenance as much as possible. Get
Hmm.
things that are going to be high quality and last well, and provide safe facilities for our children, our community children, to be able to enjoy. And I'm sure there'll be a couple of adults swinging on the swings and that sort of thing as well. Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. I mean, I wanted to try out the park yesterday, but I knew that my pull-up bar skills were probably going to be all of 10 seconds. So I thought, maybe I'll go when there's nobody here. and then I'll check it out and see. So Miss Brenda Archer is wondering, are we going to get an ambulance and fire truck in Savannah Newlands? Of course, quite interestingly enough, we see that the Cayman Islands Fire Service just got 2 new vehicles added to their fleet with some additional capability, especially as it relates to the aerodrome side. So that was quite exciting. But does every single district, are we getting to that point yet in our population where every single district requires like a, ambulance and fire truck and
Well,
mini
certainly not.
hospital?
I mean, we have 19 constituencies, right?
Mhm.
And it's obviously not feasible, not perhaps not even reasonable for every constituency to expect to have an ambulance and a fire truck. But
Mhm.
certainly, where there are gaps within the island or within the islands, we want to make sure that those gaps are addressed. And there is still a plan to have a facility off Anton Bodden Drive at the back of Bodden Town. So
Mhm.
the
Okay.
bypass road that goes through the back of Bodden Town, behind where you go in behind the
Right.
Thiel and McCoy Primary School,
Yep.
there is still a proposal to have a facility there with an ambulance and possibly a fire truck as well. I mean, clearly ambulances are very important to have in strategic locations to minimize the delay in being able to reach people, address their needs, and then get them on the way to the hospital. So that's still the plan, and it may not be in Savannah, may not be specifically in Newlands, but I can tell you that the drive from there to Newlands or Savannah, from that point behind Bodden Town and on Anton Bodden, will probably be somewhere around 7 or 8 minutes for an ambulance.
Mhm.
So that's actually, quite good. Where it gets difficult is when you have a situation where an ambulance is called, and sometimes it takes half an hour to 45 minutes for them to reach.
Mhm.
That's when it gets very difficult. People, depending on the kinds of problems people have, you sometimes have this concept of the golden hour. You want to be able to get to people as quickly as possible so you can then deal with them, triage them, and transport them to the hospital to get treatment. And
Absolutely.
if we can get that done within that hour, many times that is going to be um, the real trick there to getting them safely returned back to their families.
Mhm. That's for sure. So, of course, you mentioned earlier about just briefly about the situation in Ukraine. We
Yeah.
can't, have a discussion with you as a leader of this country and probably not address that. It continues. I was just reading a headline from the BBC News that apparently the Russians actually bombed a theater today with hundreds of civilians in that theater. I think they were using it for like a bunker, and they actually bombed that today as well. It doesn't seem like it's getting any better. Russia is maintaining their position. They are hitting, lots of civilian targets, and I guess the rest of the world is continuing to put the pressure on
Yeah.
with sanctions and so on. Any sort of updated thoughts on that situation, or what more can the world do?
Well, I mean, Sandra, at a time when the world is faced with existential issues like climate change, um, with the challenges of trying to make sure that we have food security for people all over the world. This is what certain people are concerned about, going off and attacking in an unprovoked, unjustified way a neighboring country, people that speak, in many cases, the same language in Russia, and that have had lots of historical ties, and they're bombing these people, they're shooting, they're invading. It is absolutely ridiculous. It's unacceptable. It's not something that the world today, humanity today, should
Mhm.
be accepting in any way. So the Cayman Islands, like many other places, many other states and countries, are doing our part to ensure that we follow through on the positions taken by the international standard setters, those who are putting the sanctions in place. For us, the UK, there is a mechanism through which once the UK has implemented the sanctions, it automatically gets sort of put in place for Cayman. We don't actually have to meet as a cabinet and make a decision, or regulators don't have to meet and make a decision on it. It is automatically implemented. And it does it have an impact? Yes. Um, the fact is, geopolitical sensitivities and crises and all of these types of things, anything that causes uncertainty, causes problems, and ripples around the world. And of course, we've seen what has happened with the price of energy, with the price of fuel. And that's, to me, that's only basically, underscored the need for us to move away from relying exclusively on fossil fuel for energy, and to move and to push the implementation of renewable energy in our own country. We don't um, we don't need to be impacted by these types of things in this way. Now, there are other issues that we can do probably little about. We have, we're a country that unfortunately imports better than 95% of what we consume, and the ramifications around the world are such that that we've had all the various COVID implications. We have had the supply chain disruptions that have occurred from COVID, because factories have had to be closed and people have been out sick. Um, those have driven up costs in many areas. This type of thing, which has the impact on fuel, on energy, that's only going to drive the costs up even more. Not just the cost for fuel for us to utilize here in this country. It's a commodity. So the fuel, any uncertainty in any part of the world that supplies fuel is going to drive up the price of that commodity, and we're paying more for it now. Um, but it's, as I've discussed in the past on your show, it's having the impact of creating additional inflation for us, and that is something that we have to. Government needs to look at it carefully to figure out how we can do, if we can mitigate any of it. And at the same time, we've got to demonstrate to the rest of the world that we are in solidarity with them, with their position, and the people of Ukraine, who deserve to have our support, deserve to have our protection. So we have been, as I said to you earlier, one of the reasons I didn't make the youth parliament was that I had to participate in this call, and that is something that I thought was very, very important. And it's a part of the balancing act that we go through every day. Trying to assess what are the priority issues that we need to deal with. This is a part of being involved with leadership. You have to work out and balance those priorities. You have to deal with the realities of today. Try to continue to remain optimistic and convey hope. Take a long-term perspective, but also be looking out down the road. What are the potential issues down the road for us, and how do we mitigate those impacts? And that's one of the things about my ministry, obviously, with sustainability and climate resiliency, is that it reflects just that. It's about the future. It's about making sure that what we're doing today puts us in a better position to handle what's coming down the road for us in terms of climate change impacts, but also allowing us to function better as a society. Sustainability is, as I said before in the show, isn't just about the environment. It's about the society as well. It's about economics. It's about having a place to live, and being able to afford safe and appropriate quality homes and shelter. And so that's another thing. One of our very important focuses for this government is to try to address this issue with housing, which is
Mhm.
becoming, it has been an issue, and it's becoming more and more of an issue. And this, as I said before, it's not unique to Cayman, but we have got to find the solutions that work for us. We've got to put those in place. Wishful thinking isn't going to do it. We've got to make very specific assessments. What is a true demand right now? What is the anticipated demand in 5 years? And then work out what the supply may look like, and how we put the two together in an effective way, so
Mhm.
that people can actually not just qualify to own a home, but are also prepared to continue to own that home and maintain that home, and have a wonderful family life, and enjoy it without having to worry about being in a position where you're financially challenged, to sort of keep the home. So these are all things that we have to be concerned about. There are different
Right.
segments, and of course, as we have also discussed on your show in the past, you've got the rental market, the rental segment.
Mhm.
Those are things that absolutely have to be addressed. Um, some of those are for people who are guests in our country, who are on work permits. Um, but we also have many in our population who rent as well. So we have to make sure that the standards are equal across the board, and people have quality homes, have the opportunity to pay fair rents and get quality homes to live in.
Mhm. Yeah, it's getting tougher by the minute. Someone was just messaging me, which I saw earlier. Of course, the Federal Reserve, we posted that earlier this afternoon, has gone up on rates, and as a result of that, CNB is the first to announce, and we know that all the banks will
How many
be.
days notice?
Sorry,
How many days notice were we given?
from CNB.
Yeah,
Well, they've said by the 18th, so they've
right.
given
2 days
people a
notice.
couple
Okay.
days.
Um,
Um, I mean,
those,
the funny thing is, CNB always gives a couple days notice. The other ones will probably put up their notices on Friday to say effective today, which I don't know why they don't
maybe,
follow.
maybe. Yeah.
They don't follow CNB's position and
I
count
mean,
at
it's a
least
good
give a
thing. It's
couple
a
of
good thing.
days.
It's only
But
a quarter point, I
a
think,
quarter,
right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but the Fed has indicated, the U.S. Fed has indicated that they are going to have a number of other increases during
Yes.
the course of this year. Or they anticipate needing a number of other increases during the course of this year, another 5 or 6, I think they said. Clearly, they have been experiencing a spate of inflation that they probably at a rate that they probably haven't seen in the last 20 or 30 years.
Hmm.
So they are concerned about using that policy lever to try to keep inflation under control.
Yeah.
And the impacts on us um, are going to be similar. We're going to have increasing costs on adjustable rate mortgages, which is the majority of the mortgages that people have in this country.
Hmm.
Very, very few people actually have fixed rate mortgages,
Yeah,
and
I had
if
I
they
had a
do, they
I had a
probably have
fixed rate.
been paid a
I got,
premium.
I got to tell you, I had a fixed rate because of COVID. The banks had offered, and I thought, yeah, this is a good time to do it because we were anticipating some increases. And just a couple months ago, they're like, "Oh, well, the fixed rate is up. What do you want to do?" And I thought, the variable rate was better than fixed rate, so I thought, "Oh, let me go back." And as you have said, Murphy's law, right? So the Feds
Yeah,
have announced that there will be 6 additional increases anticipated for this year, for what they say they voted today to lift the interest rate and
right.
penciled in 6 more increases by year end. This is the most aggressive pace in more than 15 years, in an escalating effort to slow inflation that is running at its highest level in 4 decades. And
Okay.
of course, this is actually the first time that the Feds have increased since 2018. So there hasn't been an increase in quite some time. So, yeah, there you have it. What are you going to do? gas prices are up now. I think people just are going to have to buckle down. And guess what's right around the corner, Premier? Another COVID wave is hitting Europe, and the U.S. is starting to brace itself. Everybody rushed to get rid of all the mandates, the mask mandates, and everything else, and now they may be regretting that move. So sometimes slow and easy is the way to go.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of countries and a lot of people seem to have reached the conclusion that COVID has just gone away. Unfortunately, it has not.
Yeah.
We are obviously in a better position to, to weather it, in the sense that our vaccination rate, as you know, is very high. Our booster rate is coming up fairly nicely. It's not where I'd like it to be, but it is coming up. I think we're around 40% now. So those are all very positive things, good things. The challenge for us is to make sure we keep that balance right, that we control the level of COVID that occurs in the community. I don't think any of us want to go back to the situation that we had, 4 months ago, 3-4 months ago, where you had very significant rates of infection going on, and a lot of people in isolation. So as much as I would like to be able to say to people, yes, we can just do away with all these health protocols, it's not going to happen anytime soon. We're not going to be able to ignore things for some time to come, I think. I see, I see the question there about closer to relaxing mask mandates. We are not thinking about that at this point. I suspect that in another, 3 to 4 weeks, or maybe 6 weeks, if our trajectory is very positive, we may go away from mandates. But it's also just as well possible that we may have, another round of some other variant or something. One of the Omicron variants coming along, as you said. They're having growing infection rates in Europe, US, and the UK, and a lot of those countries they've had high rates of infection. They've had high rates of death. I don't think Cayman would want to be in that situation where they've had those types of rates of death. It's hard. It would be hard for us to get used to that idea, and to feel like, and I would feel like we're failing, to do a good job to keep things under control, if we were in that sort of situation. I know there are people who don't want to get vaccinated, and they're pushing back on vaccinations. Still, they're pushing back on masks. But guess what? Vaccinations and masks do save lives.
And we were reminded of sort of a stark reminder, really, of the seriousness of COVID, ongoing with a 3-year-old here in the Cayman Islands that requires emergency services overseas, complications due to COVID.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the great news there is that child has come off the ventilator and is doing a lot better. Still needs urgent attention, but is doing a lot better.
Wow.
So it's one of those things that I celebrate whenever somebody gets that ill and can recover. But when it's a child, you're doubly elated. It's very difficult to be informed that someone's child is in that kind of condition, and they need that sort of intervention, and it's very, very difficult for parents to go through, and for the patient, the child, to go through. But I think that child is going to get the necessary attention very quickly, and I'm very, very hopeful that she will go on to have a wonderful life, and this will just be a temporary challenge that she's had to experience.
Do we have any idea? I mean, it came up yesterday, and we did put it up because we understood that the need was urgent. But do we have any idea why there was not insurance in place for this child to be able to get off island right away. Have you looked into that? Because a lot of people are calling on the government to foot the bill for the almost $30,000 air ambulance. And I said, well, why should government foot the bill when that's the whole purpose of having mandatory insurance policies?
Yes. I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
why the child didn't, why there wasn't relevant insurance for the child, but you know, that happens
Mhm.
all too frequently here, Sandra, and it is something that we have to be cognizant of and try to find ways to address. The child was visiting, wasn't a a resident in terms
Mhm.
of authorization on a dependent on a work permit or anything like that, as far
I
as I'm
see.
aware. As far as I'm
Right.
aware,
Hmm.
and you know, it's just one of those things that happened.
Right.
But as I said, it happens too often, and this is one of the concerns we have in terms of the growing element of costs that the
Mhm.
government has to undertake in terms of providing healthcare for our
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
Now, we what is clear is that you know when it relates to non-nationals, non-Caymanians,
Mm.
it you know it's rightfully the subject of discussion.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, when you're talking about a 3-year-old child, um, you know,
Mhm. You
you
just
do
make it
wonder
happen.
whether you should just forget about that discussion and just make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's you know that is the approach that we're taking. With it. The child was extremely ill and needed to be treated in place first before being
Mhm.
moved on. And I'm very happy that that point has been reached now. So I'm hoping by the end of the week, I'm hoping the child would be in care at another facility where it can get the life saving surgery and treatment that it needs.
Mhm. Very good. All right. Well, thanks for that information. We have a few more minutes with the premier, folks. He's got an hour to spend with us this evening, so we know that he's extremely busy. But I noticed that we passed the 8 o'clock hour, and your lights didn't go off today.
Oh,
So
they did,
they
but
did they? I missed it.
yeah, Mr. Norman caught
They
them
came
very
on
quick.
quickly then.
Yeah, we usually, if anybody is cognizant of the time, you're usually
Yes.
prepared to jump up and turn it back on. So
Yes,
yeah,
that's our little reminder that we're at the 8 o'clock hour. But I totally missed it just now. So
yeah.
um right. So a couple other things this week that were at the top of the headline. I did see your office release a press statement this morning about the UK decision on the same-sex marriage. Could you just sort of capture for the benefit of our listeners what your comments were?
Well, I mean, I was really just trying to set out from a factual perspective what what the decision related to, um, and then basically indicate that we know that this is an emotive issue. We know that this is something that there are significant divisions in terms of views in the community. And what I would encourage is for those who want to have an open discussion about this, that they do so and they respect the views of other people and do it in a constructive way, you know, without any haranguing and going on and you know carrying on in a way which is disrespectful to the views of others. Um, you know, the young people in the country, I think, probably have we have a let's put it another way, we probably have a generational gap in terms of perspectives on these particular issues. Those who are older, those who are over 40, tend to have a view which is not as sympathetic or supportive of this particular issue, and those who are under um, tend to have a more sympathetic view.
Mhm.
So, you know, this is the way the world goes. It, you know, the rights of people to live a normal life and to be who they are, to be how they were born, is one that people feel, you know, should be younger people feel should be respected. That's not to do anything to do with people acting in a way which is uncivilized or which is you know which doesn't reflect cooperating with society and living together in peace and harmony. Um, this is about, people who are born with a particular sexual preference, which may be viewed by others as non-standard, and they as long as they're not doing any harm to anybody else, um, there is a view that that should be allowed, and that should be respected.
Mm-hmm.
What we do have in place was as a which was a point that the Court of Appeal made in allowing the appeal, which the government brought originally in relation to the Grand Court decision, which initially allowed same-sex marriage. Was the Grand Court, the Court of Appeal basically said you need to provide a mechanism through which those individuals who are same-sex and wish to take advantage of it have the ability to be joined in a union with the functional equivalents to marriage.
Mm-hmm.
We have that in place. It was put in place in 2020. That's the Civil Partnership Act, and that we've had. I don't know the numbers, but we've had quite a few couples that have taken advantage of that. And I would hasten to add that the way it's structured is it allows both same-sex as well as opposite-sex partners
Mm-hmm.
to join in a civil union. And I think that we've probably had about an equal amount, roughly, although I don't know the numbers offhand, to be honest. So I don't want to get called out on that. And what I say is subject to someone correcting me with the specific numbers. But the point is that there is a mechanism which allows same-sex partners to have a life together, to have rights which are functionally equivalent to marriage, to be able to have their partners recognized as as their partners, or as their life partners, as people who can inherit from them, who can make decisions in relation to their health, for example, if they're not able to do so themselves. So these are really important things, and to me, it reflects the growth of our society. It reflects respect for each other. It reflects tolerance in our society for everyone here. I'm particularly happy to know that there are young Caymanians who can take advantage of this, who can be a part of this, same-sex or otherwise, if they choose. And as long as that mechanism is in place, we now are in a position with the Privy Council ruling that we are not as a country, under pressure to put in place a mechanism. It exists already. It was done with the Civil Partnership Act. As you know, there was a judicial review in relation to that, and I think we're awaiting the ruling on that. If that ruling, I don't believe it will. I don't believe it will go against the government. But if that ruling was to invalidate same-sex unions, then I think then the government is then under more pressure again to address this issue, as it was in the past, because very clearly the Cayman Islands government would have an obligation to put in place a mechanism which provides these types of rights and recognizes the right of individuals who want to take advantage of them to do so. So I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think that we have to be prepared as a country that if it does, it is something that we need to do. We need to be able to respond to. But the question of whether same-sex marriage is a right under our Constitution has now been dealt with. The Privy Council has decided it is the superior court of appeal for us. It's the highest court of appeal for us, and they have decided that our Constitution gives a right to a man and a woman to get married and found a family. It does not give a right to same-sex partners to get married and have a family. Um, that is the clarity brought about specifically by that ruling. But they also recognized, as did the Court of Appeal, that if it wanted to, Parliament could pass a law which provided same-sex parties with the right to be married in the same way as any other opposite-sex partner. And that wouldn't require a constitutional change. It wouldn't require a referendum. It would just require Parliament to act to do that. It's not something that this government has ever discussed, and it was never a part of our manifestos. So it's I don't think it's going to happen. I think that mechanism will remain in place in relation to civil partnerships. But if it did not, then obviously it's an issue that we may have to consider down the road.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Premier, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening. Folks, of course, we'll have a regularly scheduled morning show. We're going to be talking about multiple sclerosis tomorrow. So we've got a physician as well as someone who suffers from MS on the program, who's going to tell us a little bit about her journey, discovering that she has MS and how she manages and lives with that particular disease. So make sure that you tune in, because the month of March is a lot of different things, and it's actually MS month as well. So just providing some education to people. Also, don't forget that this weekend is National Heroes Day. The celebration is going to be taken to Cayman Brac, so I'm sure the Premier will be there, and they have a number of events.
I will enjoy the weekend. I will enjoy the trip to the Brac to celebrate the issue of those awards to the good people of Cayman Brac, and those people and those families who deserve to have their loved ones recognized.
Yep. So Brackers, go out and enjoy the festivities. I think a schedule is going to go up here shortly on our platform, and there are other events that are planned as well. So Premier Panton, thank you once again for joining us here on Premier Access. Every other Wednesday, folks, you can tune in. So he will be back on, today's the 16th. So the next date should be the 30th. And if all goes well, that will be a day, his first appearance on the program when it's being simulcast on radio as well. So don't forget that the target date, again, fingers crossed, no FedEx lost packages in the works, is for March 28th on 89.1, the new Bobo FM. So we're really, really looking forward to that. And that'll be exciting to have you do your first show on radio.
Good. Well, it wouldn't be my first show on radio, but it would be yours. That's fantastic. That's amazing. It's amazing how far you've come with this platform, and as I've told you many times, you do an excellent job, and we really appreciate the ability to reach out to so many people and address issues that people care about. So thank you, and thank you so much to those who, your fans, those who tune in, those who listen to you. I see oh God, King Navasa hasn't come on.
Oh, so he must have gone to bed early.
He must have something better to do. I don't know what that is. But
yeah, he might actually be sleeping for a change.
Yeah. But it's amazing. It's wonderful, and it is, I think, essential to be available to people to have these discussions. We haven't had a lot of interaction tonight, but maybe that's not a bad thing. That means that things are much better than people are having to deal with problems with. So thank you again. Really appreciate it. I want to say, I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Be safe on the roads. As a friend of mine says, safe travels on the gravels. And if we're driving on the road and it feels like gravel, I'm going to say something is wrong with the road, but that's
and he uses it. I think is pretty cool anyway.
Yes.
So thank you all. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And thank you to all of those who have tuned in. And look forward to being able to, have these discussions again going forward. And certainly look forward to the next one when we're on radio as well as,
Yes,
in the
absolutely.
cyber world.
I'll make sure everybody knows that you're here. Thank you. We appreciate it.
All righty. Thanks. Take care. All the best.
All right. Thanks again. So, yes, folks, we're moving forward. Bobo is coming, and it's coming up on us very, very quickly, I must say. So the 28th is our target date, our target launch date. DMS had 2 other stations to launch, and they've been doing fantastic. I've been on my car. The dial has been stuck on the new Magic 91.5, I think is the frequency. I'm enjoying the music, some, classics, what I call classics, but stuff from the 80s and 90s. It really brings back a lot of memories, some great stuff there. So yeah, Bobo's coming online, folks. It's going to be super exciting. Thank you, Joanna, Miss Brenda, Selvin, Richard, Jane, and everybody else who tuned into the program this morning. Thank you, Nikita. Bruce, we didn't get to your question, but I'm gonna actually screen grab that and have that in the queue for next time. The premiere only had an hour this evening that you could spare with us, so we were a little bit crunched for time. But next time, I'll make sure that question is lined up. So that's it, folks. Lots going on in the world. Catch us in the morning. We'll discuss some of the international, regional, of course, topics specific to the Cayman Islands always. And we've got news coming up here in about half an hour, so tune back in for Misha and the day's news as well as weather. So you guys have a fantastic evening. Please be safe, and we'll chat in the morning. Good night.